alive!
How do we know she is alive?
I hate when people talk during the movie.
No wire hangers ever!
You're tearing me apart, Lisa!
Your stupid minds! Stupid! Stupid!
Relax. It's all in bad taste.
She has been taken! How did you accept it without being here? I'm very confused.
That was fully magical, right?
What did you do? What's going on right now? What's happening?
I literally figured out how I could put my hand and click the button without being seen because I'm sad.
I mean, it took you about 10 seconds to do it. You weren't really fast with it, were you?
No, she really wasn't. All you really need to do is stand to the side of the screen and click it.
So I love how Ryan said we weren't going to talk over each other, then immediately started talking over me. Like, maybe 10 seconds into the recording?
Well, if I didn't talk over you, I'd never get to speak. Oh, you bitch.
Hi, guys. Nice to see you. We're recording virtually today. We're using the old internet to do this technology jam. Jam.
That wasn't in the
It's not staying in.
Mind now.
It's not staying in.
It is.
I have a question before we really start, before we get into the meat of today's episode. Because it's been bugging me ever since we watched and recorded Zilla last week.
Are you purposely making puns here? Meat bug?
Meat bug?
What?
What's a meat bug?
You said the words meat and bug in separate sentences.
And how are they puns? How is
Mothzilla? No, Mothzilla's not a thing. Mothzilla!
Right, can you imagine?
Mothra, bug.
No, Mothzilla. Let's go on Hannah's Mothzilla.
I want a Mothzilla. Like, could you imagine flying Godzilla? Like a fully flying Godzilla. Has that ever been done, Mr. Knowledge of all Godzilla films?
Why do you did this to me in the last episode where you tried to like fish information that you know I don't have.
One of the mechas could probably fly.
Godzilla can yeet himself a distance, is what I've learned from watching these films.
Yeah, but if an Olympic athlete jumps really far, you don't say that she can now fly. She's just very good at jumping.
No, you're wrong. He uses his nuclear breath to propel himself, much like Azula in a fire.
Yeah, he's a bit like a jet.
Okay. Hang on, I thought it came out of his mouth.
It does. The physics make no sense, but there it is.
It's Godzilla.
It's a guy in a rubber suit trying to come on.
Let's my question, because it has been bugging me since last week. In these universes, in these like monster adult universes, do you think there are like specific insurance companies for this kind of shit? Like, do you have to get monster insurance based on where you live?
No.
And I was thinking it goes up based on what city you live in. Like, if you live in like a big metropolitan, like a capital city, that monster insurance must be ACCA, right? Like,
but Godzilla goes where Godzilla wants.
No. He only goes to London, Tokyo, New York.
He has a few popular vacation destinations.
Let's be real, okay?
So really, it's all just a big conspiracy from government so that they could put monster tax. That's all Godzilla is.
It's a big insurance scam. It's just one big fucking scam.
Can you, like, the life insurance payments are going to be fucking huge.
Right.
But I mean, the government has to pay for all that shit, right?
Someone has to.
But maybe they're just banking on, right? So say you've got a full family that lives in New York and they've all got monster insurance, Reese. They're banking on that entire family being squished, because then who do they pay out to? All of the other people are gone.
God, that's a good business model.
Right?
Genius.
It's almost as if the government profiting off the many dead is not a thing that happens in our universe.
They can make funeral services a public thing.
They probably
so it's owned by the government as well. Mastery. They've cracked it.
Well, we have cracked that code, so hey there, guys, and welcome to the...
Excuse me? Excuse me, what now? We didn't rehearse that. You are not allowed to do the intro.
Welcome to Aftertaste, the Bad Taste Buds supplementary show where we continue to talk about
I can see the fury in Liam's eyes.
Liam, you've never sounded better.
The sequels they inspired and the cinematic...
Let me do it. Let me take over because you're fucking it.
No, lineage they derive from. I'm your host, Liam.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm Liam. Today
we have Liam on the script. Don't even
pretend. Who the hell is Liam?
Today, I am joined by 3/4 of the buds. Hannah, joining us in beautiful sunny Newcastle. Say hello, Hannah. Give us a wave.
Hey!
I kind of want to do this all again.
We have Ryan.
Hi, I'm a big idiot. I'm a big idiot who doesn't know how to speak properly.
I love how you love that insult, Liam, that you said it twice. Not just once, but
It was a good
twice.
insult. It was a good little insult.
I'm a big idiot.
I'm a big idiot.
You are.
Literature student, everybody. Oh no, I suppose Ryan wouldn't be.
No.
No, I now have Liam on microphone call himself a big idiot.
I'm a big dumb idiot, and my name is Ryan. Jack couldn't make it today. I'm taking back over. Jack couldn't make it today. Something about a large shipment of fish, I believe. Was the
thank you for you.
It's a lot of fish.
Oh, that's a lot of fish.
Oh, fish.
I was hoping one of you would do it, but instead Ryan just set me up to do it again, as if I hadn't said
did
before.
it.
Did you do it?
Yeah.
We'll edit that out. We'll make it look like you're an idiot.
We all tried.
It's just the three of us today. Today we are here to put our very limited knowledge to the test as we chat shit about a franchise we know very, very little about.
Hey, well, I'm pretty good up until 2004-ish.
To be fair, me and Ryan, I don't know about you, me and Ryan have been researching the shit out of this for about a week and a half now. We've got through 6 of the shoujo films.
There's so many names to remember.
We've done some pretty comprehensive research, so I'm going to say that I am adequately prepared.
I am here for the ride. I'm basically here for a lesson on Gorira.
Godzilla.
Gojira.
The correct
Gojira?
pronunciation. Gojira. So yeah, me and Ryan did a lot of research this week. We basically watched the original 1954 Godzilla. We watched Godzilla Raids again. I say I watched, and Ryan played Dragon Ball Z in the background.
Yeah,
I watched Godzilla vs. King Kong, the original 62 version, not the remake. Mothra vs. Godzilla, and Ghidorah, the 3-headed monster. The plan was to finish the entire shoujo era by the time of recording, but hey-ho, I'm nothing if not
Is that
ambitious.
physically possible
Well, this is
in a
it.
week?
You know me. You've known me for how many years, Hannah?
Like a decade now.
Is that you sound with such
The exasperation in my voice.
all 10 years. God, it's been a long 10 years. And I'm nothing if not ambitious, let's be honest. But yeah, I fucked up. I failed. I couldn't do it.
That's one word.
But yeah, I think we've got a decent knowledge of it. Let's do a little bit of a history deep dive into just what makes this franchise one of the longest running and widely lauded movie franchises in cinema history.
Well, let's just say it started out with good intentions, got weird in the middle.
It got a little bit weird.
It's coming back around again.
It got a little bit weird. The idea for Gojira first came into fruition in 1954, actually, when Tomoyuki Tanaka, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. There'll be quite a few names that I'm going to try my very best to pronounce, but do tell me if I'm fucking any of these up, because I probably am. He was a film producer for Toho. Basically, he was flying over the ocean. This was kind of the origin story of Godzilla, was him on a plane. Flying over the ocean and him kind of daydreaming about what the fuck would happen if a giant monster rose out of the earth and just attacked the plane. Which, that's kind of what I do when I'm on long flights.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Hang on. So, a 60-film worldwide franchise came out of a guy who daydreamed on a plane?
I feel like a lot of franchises came from that. Yeah, the proposal was accepted by Toho. They basically heard it and was like, abso-fucking-lutely, why not? Toho was quite, they were quite used to their big giant monster movies at that point. There were no strangers to big monster movies. And yeah, pretty much immediately after the proposal was pitched, they began filming under the stipulation that this was meant to be a different kind of monster movie. This was meant to be a different beast entirely.
So speaking of different beasts, how are you going to fucking love this? So when we were talking about what animal we want in the Avatar universe, I want to change my answer. Gojira was originally going to be a gorilla whale.
Gorilla whale.
In fact, that's where the name comes from. Gojira is gorilla whale.
Yes!
Gorilla whale.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, that's the origin.
Is that what it is?
Pretty sure that was the origins of the
Look
name.
at you spouting facts. Look at you.
Hang on, right. So I'm trying to figure out in my head if it's a Godzilla whale.
Nope.
What?
Gorilla.
No, gorilla whale. What gorilla attributes it would have and what whale attributes it would have. Because, right,
Right.
Godzilla can...
Gojira.
Gojira.
You can call him Godzilla. You can call him Godzilla.
They clearly need him to be able to walk on land, though, don't they? He can't just be like a... He's an amphibious
Well, you
creature. The
say
idea
that.
is that he would rise up from the ocean and he would come and destroy cities or what have
Now,
you.
you say that before you go on your little tangent. He was also meant to be a giant squid at one point. That was another pitch they had.
But again, a squid could maneuver itself on land, but unless you give...
Have you seen a squid
like-
maneuver itself on land?
I think I'm thinking of an octopus.
Well, I think they both can do it, but not, like, successfully, really.
Yeah, but a whale even less
A
successfully.
gorilla
I
whale.
feel like we're going to spend 20 minutes talking about which animal
that's
is
a really,
better
really
suited
good point.
to fucking take over.
That's a really good point. Yeah, what was your point, Hannah? Before I cut you off.
I cannot remember
Good.
now. Which parts would be the whale and which parts would be the gorilla?
Like,
Big ass gorilla
just
hands.
imagine King Kong, the size of a whale with the body of a gorilla.
Yeah,
Unsatisfying, but we're done with that.
That's just King Kong.
Well, yeah,
That's not
there's your
half
answer,
whale,
Hannah.
half
We've come to a
Godzilla,
question
like
now.
half.
So, moving on.
That's the most redundant answer. You can't say that you've got a half whale, half gorilla creature and then say it's a gorilla the size of a whale. That's just a large gorilla.
Tell me what you envision then.
gorilla hands, gorilla legs, whale body.
Whale body
Right,
with a
perfect.
whale face.
So you answered your own question, Hannah. So
There
why
you
did you
go.
ask it in the first place? It's almost as if
Ryan's getting stressed. He's going to cut all of this out.
it's almost as if we're doing a podcast. Culturally, the film probably was I think, from my money anyway, was the most important. I've noticed something listening back to these episodes. I say for my money like 40 times an
You
episode.
say a lot of things a lot of times per episode.
We could start a drinking game with the amount of times I say for my money. But yeah, I say it, but yeah, a lot. Culturally, I think this film is probably one of the most important culturally relevant films that I've ever seen, that I've ever really indulged in, which is kind of why I get so pissed off when a lot of people dismiss it and a lot of people kind of call them just dumb, standard, formulaic monster movies, because there is such a rich history here, and there's such an important, especially for Japanese cinema, such an important lineage here that a lot of people will never know about.
Yeah, it's hard to understand the experience unless you actually lived it. So this was obviously during the American occupation of Japan.
Yeah.
And
Well, it was slightly post, right? It was right
this
after
was
World War II.
7 years afterwards. This got released, the first Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
But the Americans completely censored everything to do with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They wouldn't let anything through that wasn't a fluff piece. So openly discussing the nuclear holocaust was just an absolute no-go. And there was no way this film could have even seen the light of day of the script, never mind the actual movie, well until America had moved out.
Well, yeah, I mean, America being America. The censorship on the original 54 film, how long did that last? Well, how long was the censored version shown in? Because how much did they cut as well? They cut a shit ton out of it, didn't they? Was it 60% or something?
Yeah, they took Hannah, they redid the movie, redubbed it. They took out, the Americans, 60% of the original film. Took out anything to do with nuclear bunkers, anyone irradiated food, people suffering, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Completely censored it out, put their own script and stuff in, put their own actors in. They had an actor talking to other characters from the original, even though they clearly were not in the same
So
place
they
whatsoever.
Americanized this shit before Emmerich
Hugely.
did.
So Godzilla was a big allegory for a nuclear bomb. Like himself, he was giant, terrifying, and disastrous. The Americans got a hold of it, and it became a popcorn piece.
Just bastardized it,
It
didn't
was a complete fluff piece. It didn't do well.
So the ones that you guys have been watching then, are they sort of what it was meant to be?
Because originally, the original was, yes, a big allegory. Even in the second one, I think there's still a little bit on message, and there's loads of spin-offs that are direct sequels from the first ones, but you can't say most of these big monster movies where it is just him and Godzilla beating the shit out of each other and the same allegory. It becomes
I want to disagree.
pretty cartoonish.
I want to disagree because I still think, regardless of how cartoon, the ones we watched, the 6 we watched, regardless of how cartoony they got and regardless of how silly they got, I do feel like each one of them was grounded in cultural history of Japan. Because the best Godzilla films are somehow also the most juxtaposed in a way. They're both deeply biting political satires and post-war allegories, of course, because you're right, it was born out of Japan's fear of the bomb. Of every country, Japan got it the worst, and Japan has the biggest right to fear the fucking nuclear bombs, because obviously Hiroshima and Nagasaki were two of the greatest tragedies to ever befall our poor fucking planet. But then also at the same time, you're right, that juxtaposition between biting satire and giant, fun action monster movie. And specifically speaking about the first one I wouldn't even classify as an action film. The first one
it was
dark.
a while before it moved into the action category. It's about 4 movies in.
The first one is so fucking dark, Hannah. I put it on, I remember, I think I'd seen it as a kid. As soon as I put it on, I was getting flashbacks. I think I watched it with my dad when I was really young. But yeah, it's a horror film, if anything. It is a extremely darkly lit but beautifully shot horror film that lingers more on the suffering of the humans, more on the starvation, the humans in the rubble, the suffering that they're going through. That's kind of the focal point of that film.
Just for reference, to show you they're not playing around, Godzilla's head from certain angles is meant to look like a mushroom cloud, like a nuclear mushroom cloud.
Yeah.
And his scales are meant to represent burned flesh of the victims.
Oh God. So then, if that was like, how did America get their hands on that franchise then? Because that seems like a bit of a fuck you,
Well, I
doesn't
mean,
it, really?
America, I think they tried on several occasions to export this to America, and it really didn't take off. Like, this is the thing, like, those adaptations weren't, like, well received or financially that successful. It wasn't until Emmerich, who, again, kind of fucked up and failed. There hasn't been until since 2014 was kind of the first successful...
They didn't do too badly once DVDs became popularized. Once the rise of the DVD came, it was a lot easier to get these things transported cheaper. They did get a bit more of a market then. They became more popularized, which actually then allowed the later ones to be made.
The most prominent thematic elements that Tanaka and Toho considered during pre-production, you're right, was the absolute horrors of the Second World War. The first movie... It's a direct response to the atomic bombs. Like, this is a country still reeling from kind of years of destruction and desolation and death. So yeah, Godzilla. It's a very morose, sad film. There's a lot of empathy and there's still a lot of fear that's like etched into every scene, and it holds up beautifully. Like, it's still this gorgeous. As much as you can say that the effects are dated and the man in the rubber suit is silly. I hesitate to even call any of it silly because it's these gorgeously designed, gorgeously acted in suits and miniatures, and the scenes with the miniatures. So obviously, any scene where Godzilla is destroying a city are all these beautifully handcrafted miniatures, and you've got to admire the work that goes into them.
And then feel sorry for the artist who spent hours of their life for it to be smashed.
I never even thought of that. Yeah, this person, he's built these beautiful renditions of Japan, beautiful miniature cities that, you're right, yeah, just get fucking trampled on by a big guy in a suit. But it works. Like, it works as a.
So when did the first film come out?
1954. Yeah.
54. So it was 9 years after.
And you can tell.
The atomic bomb.
You can see in every frame. I mean, the director the director was famous for making war footage films. Like, he got his start making and filming during the war. He was a kind of almost with the press and the news reporters filming the desolation.
Did they use any of the footage?
Not that I know of. There was
not
never
from
anything
that.
stipulated.
No. He has separate documentaries that already has that footage in. And it would be a bit to actually use real life footage of people suffering in a movie,
I think,
regardless of the allegory.
There might be a few lines crossed of actual human suffering. You know, it wasn't really until Godzilla Raids Again, which came out only a couple of years after. They didn't really waste much. Was it the year after? I think that came out.
I think you'll find during the entire thing, they either wasted absolutely no time whatsoever and just released a new movie within the same year, or they waited 10 years, start again, give it another go.
Yeah, well, I mean, Japan was extremely proud of this. The first film, they were extremely proud of. I think it was an incredible success. They were eager to put out a second film pretty quickly after the first one did so well. Yeah, so the original film, that guy who made his name with the filming the reels of the war footage, Ishihiro Honda was the original director. He's obviously one of the crown jewels of this franchise, but it was also, I think, a lot of the credit also needs to go to these two guys, Eiji Tsuburaya, and he was the guy who created all the costumes and the effects. So a lot of the kind of the legacy is still in his kind of wheelhouse, I guess. Akira Fugabe, the guy who composed the score, and again, a lot of love. You can tell there's this there's this omnipotent foreboding score throughout the entire thing that really hits home the horrors of what it's this loud, droning, dull echo throughout the entire film, and it's just gorgeous. I think the sound design, the creature design, and the director, they all,
despite its budget, everyone who was there wanted to be there and believed in this project. It really comes through when you're watching it.
Now let's talk about a film that is the complete inverse and is kind of a piece of shit. The first sequel, Godzilla Raids Again. Ryan, you were talking about this a little bit, weren't you?
Yes, I was wondering, because you're a little dinosaur boy, if you knew what dinosaur the kaiju was based off.
The little dinosaur. So this was the film that introduced Godzilla's first adversary, Agnew Reese. Oh, I'm going to get this fucking name right. Andurus, I think. And he's based off an Ankylosaurus, because I'm a dinosaur nerd, and they're one of my favorite dinosaurs.
They are cute. I'll give you that.
medium-sized herbivores. Yeah, Godzilla Raids Again came out the year after, and it set the stage really for future installments. This was the template for pretty much the rest of the series going forward from here.
In terms of it being a versus, the thing is, it does change pace, especially for the first few movies. This one introduces our first other kaiju, and we do get our first official Godzilla versus movie.
Woo! You beat his ass, Godzilla!
But part of the nice thing about this is it is balanced between Godzilla's the monster, this other kaiju's the monster, and humans are also the monster.
That being said, this movie fucking sucks. Sorry. Right, so yeah, I watched this. I was on a massive high. I was thinking, right, yeah, Godzilla franchise, you are doing it for me. I popped Godzilla Raids Again on. Yeah, this movie fucking sucks. Like, I was kind of a bit worried at this point going in. It's this weird, obviously it has the template. It brings the template. So I guess what it did for the franchise is very influential at the least. That's probably the only thing it really does successfully. Because it blows its load. It's like this. It's this cool ass like 30-40 minute monster fight with Godzilla and Anguirus, and then the rest of the movie. Well, I think you were talking about this with the new ones, Hannah, and why they are weirdly faithful. There's a lot of human drama that's incredibly uninteresting in Godzilla Raids Again, and the entire second half of the film is just us going on a fucking skiing trip with a bunch of work colleagues, and then sometimes Godzilla's there, and then they drop a bunch of snow on him, and that's the end of the movie.
I mean,
It's meant to be.
at least it's not just characters showing off how bad
I would have much
overparent
preferred
they are, because that's basically all the new ones.
I would have much preferred that.
How not to parent?
But at least there's like interesting. It's literally a skiing resort, and we're just there with them for a bit, and it's fucking dull.
It's pretty random, but it's meant to be. Godzilla isn't the complete antagonist in this one like he was in the first one. He's only partially an antagonist, but he also fights off the other kaiju. But then humans get involved, and as humans do, we destroy him anyway, regardless.
Yeah, so it still has that political message.
Is it only the new ones then where Godzilla becomes like
no.
the anti-hero?
No, my friend.
Oh no, we have a
Whatever
whole
you would call
back
it,
and
like-
forth for decades on this.
We will get there in hour 2 of this episode. I promise you, we're not going to. I've only seen a half of the Shoji era ones. We're probably going to really skim over Heisei and talk a little bit about MonsterVerse because we don't know that much, and we're going to try our very best. But we are still laymen, so please bear with us. But yeah, I think when a lot of people complain about the new ones having those excessive plots and they're like, yeah, you spend maybe 50% of the movie with the human characters, I don't know whether they're necessarily justified criticisms, because I think that that's just a faithful recreation of what the Toho franchise always was.
Nah, I mean, yes, in that Toho did do that, but if they were going to be faithful to the franchise, there's a lot of things. It gets further and further away from the original message as we go on until eventually we basically retcon everything and go back to a sequel for the first one.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully it's not always a bad thing either. Like, going forward, I kind of went into the third film in the franchise, Godzilla vs. King Kong, with a bit of apprehension. So I was thinking, oh god, I remember, again, this is one of the other ones I've seen as a kid, and I couldn't remember it that well, but that one gets back to the good old-fashioned, silly, fun monster showdown, kind of a lot less. It really dials back the human drama, and we spend a lot more time with the monsters, and it's just silly. Like, it is. This is kind of, I think, for my money anyway, Godzilla vs.
Sillier
Kong.
than you think.
Godzilla vs. Kong is the beginning of the really silly kaiju fight films where it's almost entirely based on that.
I have to come in now. Like, you keep saying really silly, but what is really silly is this was going to be Kong versus Frankenstein.
Oh shit, yeah, fuck. Right, yeah. Did you hear that, Hannah? Was she on her phone?
No, I'm looking up Godzilla facts. Well, so yes, I am on my phone.
Yeah. Did you hear the Frankenstein? Because your reaction was just none. No, say it for the mic, Hannah. Say it for the mic. What did you do? Yeah, so the original... you want to take it again, right? This time she's going to listen. She's going to fucking listen.
This was going to be King Kong versus Frankenstein. They couldn't get the rights for Frankenstein in the end, unfortunately, and other things happened, so they swapped him out for Godzilla. Don't worry, it didn't stop them.
What?
There is a Frankenstein movie out there. So Honda didn't stop there. That did not deter him from making this Frankenstein movie. It's a Japanese take on Frankenstein, and again, it's just another monster movie, and he keeps doing all these weird things. He's got a lot of spin-offs that you should probably have a look at. It's weird as fuck.
We talk about this like Americanization of the franchise, and I think this one specifically, you see a lot of that Americanization bleed over, because from the start, Honda was like clearly a big fan of King Kong regardless. Like, the inspiration that was kind of extracted from King Kong is apparent in all of these films.
Yeah, but they had issues when they were making this movie. Like the script got completely botched. And so, for example, King Kong can get stronger through electricity, which was meant to be Frankenstein's power, but obviously they took Frankenstein out for Godzilla, not for King Kong. They swapped him for Godzilla, but King Kong ended up with Frankenstein's ability. That's how poorly the script went afterwards.
But again, this is what I mean. There is this like element of like sloppiness, but also sincerity that really, I think, makes it almost more heartfelt. The fact that these are just they're these weird little passion projects. Like, this guy was just a nerd. He was a massive nerd for Frankenstein. He was like, I fucking love Frankenstein's monster. Couldn't get the rights. You know who else I love? King Kong. Fuck it. He's electric now. I think that's cute as fuck.
You can call it that if you want, but I mean, he was really invested in it. He made Frank vs. Fairy Gom, which is a monster movie. It was so good, he got a sequel for it. There are 2 Frankenstein monster attack movies in the same vein as Godzilla vs. Kong.
Why have we never seen this?
Why? Well, because we have to have future episodes, that's why. After Godzilla vs. King Kong, we have, I think, for my money anyway, the ones that I've seen, my favorite in the franchise, which is Mothra versus Godzilla, which was, again, just an attempt to... just singing there. There's a lot of singing in this movie, I will give you that, so you are on character, my friend.
This is the next one.
Is this the one with the 2 tiny ladies?
It is the one with the 2 tiny ladies.
Yeah, what the fuck's the moth called?
Mothra.
Yeah, they're Mothra's little fairies.
Yeah, they're Mothra's guardians. Mothra has always been a benevolent creature. Mothra has always been a good girl.
It's like portrayed as like the Japanese protector.
Yeah.
Was Mothra born out of just the people who were creating the movie?
Came out in 1961, so this was a good 3-4 years before Mothra versus Godzilla. So Mothra was already an established character. And again, Mothra was heavily beloved in Japan at this time. So bringing these 2 together, again, for the American audiences, King Kong was probably the big money, but in Japan, Mothra was going to be a big money ticket for this franchise. And again, I think this is the best film in the franchise. This is the one that I think blends. It's still very political. It's still very environmentally conscious. It intends to make a lot of statements about the environment and about the way that especially the Japanese government treats the environment. But at the same time, it's silly as fuck. You're right. There are 2 tiny fairy ladies in, and they are literally
cute. I love them. They sing
size.
Constantly.
And they're singing. And Mothra is the guardian of their island, and Mothra must defeat Godzilla.
This is the next one to change the pace of the movies. The first one was that really super serious take on the nuclear bombings. The second and third one with the just big monster fighty movies, they were a bit weirdly paced. They were trying something new, trying to branch out the franchise. And then we get to Mothra, where it changes again, like Liam's saying, and it becomes this great blend of what makes Godzilla great. It gives a slightly different message, but still gives a good message. And you have Mothra, who is the ultimate protagonist versus a huge antagonist, which just creates that extra tension. No ambiguity.
Mothra. Mothra.
Spoiler alert, Hannah. Mothra
creature.
dies, Godzilla kills him, he has babies, the babies kill Godzilla.
Yeah.
What?
Mothra dies a lot.
Hang on,
Mothra dies a lot.
dies but had babies.
Had babies, they hatched into larvae, and the larvae took on Godzilla.
I won't lie, Mothra's gorgeous, but these larvae babies are fucking disgusting. So fucking gross. They're just giant maggots, and they're just... Yeah, two of them are born, and they just take the fuck down Godzilla, which is kind of brilliant. After that, I think this is the turning point for me. This was the last film in the series that I saw, Ghidorah, the 3-headed monster, which not only introduced Godzilla's greatest adversary, but also I think really started the downward trend of silly Godzilla movies, because this is the first one they talk in.
Another change of pace, once again.
It's just pace after pace after...
This one introduced the 3-way eventually.
Hey,
we got
who doesn't love a 3-way?
Got Rodan in this as well, so it was monster versus monster versus monster.
I'm hoping you can add a little drum. What's it called? The rim shot there. After my 3-way joke.
You made a joke. Was it funny? Did I miss it?
All right, you little fuck. What were you saying? I wasn't listening.
Me? This one was a change of pace again. It's the one where they introduce a monster versus monster versus monster. Zilla has to take on not just Ghidorah, but also Rodan. And he beats their motherfucking lily-livered asses.
So yeah, this is the introduction of Rodan as well, again. Thank you for that contribution, Hannah. You're always, it's always a pleasure having you on these episodes. You always add so much to the episode.
Wait, did Rodan team up with them to take down?
I believe this is the first time a team up has happened in the series, unless you count the two larvae, which I don't. But also there is again, it's the one that's starting to bring over a lot of elements. The Shobijin twin fairies from Mothra are in this as well. It's a very silly movie, but again, it does have a lot of the fun and the camp and the action to kind of keep it driving through. And this is where I got up to. As far as the Shoujo era movies, this is where I got up to.
Well, this is where Godzilla becomes a true protagonist.
Yeah.
He takes on Gojira, also known as Ghidorah, and he is the actual protagonist of this one, taking down the bad guy, which is the first time he's truly been good. At best, he's usually been like a force of nature that's destroying mankind because they're just in the way, basically.
Because we're dickheads.
And that's been the best of him up until this point.
I don't know about you guys, but I personally find Ghidorah pretty Ghidorable.
Hey, that's actually not bad.
Thank you.
How long were you thinking about it, though?
Literally about 10 minutes. You're right. This is the big hero Godzilla, the one you were saying, Hannah, the anti-hero almost. Like, yeah, he's a big destructive lizard, but he'll also save the day.
Pretty much stays like that for the rest of the Shoujo period, where he is more of a protagonist than he is a bully.
It gets very psychedelic. It keeps a lot of the political elements. There's one film where he fights a pollution monster. There's one where it's like Godzilla from outer space.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, there's also like aliens, and like aliens that take over Ghidorah's body, aliens that take over his son's body.
We haven't even mentioned his son.
For the amount of ones that there are political messages, there are equal amount that are silly and really go away from topic. One of them becomes about like standing up to bullies. A literal line is, remember, Godzilla says, maybe I should find my own battles.
Godzilla says, don't do drugs, kids.
I just find it really weird that the franchise has flipped it. So Godzilla was originally created to be this embodiment of the all-evil America who came and then eventually he's our savior.
Well, it's a reclamation, isn't it? I actually think it's a really good... I personally really find it quite heartwarming that as a culture, the Japanese filmmakers were able to use this and take this tragedy and, obviously show the horrors and show the desolation and show the destruction, but also kind of grow from it and also kind of embrace it and be like, right, well, this is... I suppose
if it, captured the nation's, heart and it really got into them, then, taking something like that and turning it into a positive attribute, into a way that they can take their sort of culture forward by giving big messages because they've captivated that audience already, then it's never a bad thing. It's just a very strange thing to have happened in such a short amount of time because, you were saying that Godzilla versus Mothra was 1964?
Yeah, 60.
So that was literally 20 years after it happened. So, and 10 years after the first year, or 11 years after the first movie came out or something along those lines. So...
yeah, about that.
That's quite a tight time frame, really, in film industry-wise.
Quite a big jump.
To turn something that was so dark into something so light.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely, you're absolutely right. It's but again, I think it shows the positive. I wish we had something like this. Obviously, again, this is why I love filmmaking. This is why I love films and films as a medium. It's such a powerful way to overcome adversity, and I think more than anything, the knowledge that this is a franchise that spanned about 70 plus years now, hats off to them, because I don't know of any real American, apart from Bond, I guess.
Speaking of, Kobayashi was actually more into the James Bond franchise than he was the Godzilla movie. I mean, his came quite a bit later on. You can see in the movie, it's very much a spy feel to it, and that comes through even though it's a Godzilla movie. Godzilla's not a spy, Hannah. You don't need to pull any faces.
This is Heisei, by the way. Are we officially in a Heisei era now?
Well, this is the Heisei era, but I mean, before that, you've got loads of shit and we could talk about for ages. I mean, you've got Godzilla's son, Milano.
Yeah.
Which is a dinosaur very much like him who can grow and shrink. He took on a giant lobster.
He did.
It was a monster lobster, Hannah.
He did.
He took on a robot who was going to be called Jaguar Jet. Then it was right in. He let the kids draw. It was like, who's it going to be? And then they were like, right, this spaceman's not going to carry a movie. Let's throw Godzilla in there. But that's not the only time it happens.
For a long time, it almost became a children's franchise where it was very family friendly, very kind of silly. Again, it was like
Godzilla became more like kid friendly looking.
It was like Saturday morning TV almost, where you could almost mistake it for a Power Rangers maybe, or something along that lines, or a Transformers.
Well, eventually it did get a complete childlike spin-off that was specifically aimed directly at young children. But prior to that, there is a film where there's a kid who's been bullied. He goes into a fantasy land where Godzilla's son's there, and Godzilla's son takes on his own bully, which empowers this kid to take on his bully. It's just weird. It gets so far away from the original message.
I see Godzilla, 150-foot Godzilla slapping the shit out of like an elementary school child bully, just like completely tossing him the fuck around in the mountains and shit.
Like Liam said earlier, you had the giant pollution monster. There was a couple of films around this period that really sucked. They got really fucking lazy and just full-on lifted scenes from other movies, stole soundtracks from the earlier Godzilla movies. It was lazy and dull, but my god, Hannah, there's two scenes. There's one I told you about where he flies using his breath, and he looks like a croissant. It's just a croissant with fire coming out of his mouth. And the other one is him fucking...
I don't understand how that could work, because the only way he could do that, projection-wise, is to project himself backwards.
It's a movie.
You could never see where he was going.
Oh, he was going backwards.
But it makes no sense.
He was actually going backwards.
He was going backwards. He was chasing the monster. But the other one, he does a double flying kick straight into the monster's chest, and he just goes sliding across the screen on his tail. But he does this awesome little fist pump at the end. He's like, huzzah! And it looks so weird and cute.
There is that point. It is the point. A lot of Heisei films follow that trajectory as well, where Godzilla is almost a superhero at this point. He's very much a comic book character. He's very much a children's idol at this point.
Does Godzilla ever get gendered?
I think it's it.
I want to say a gender.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a necessary. I mean, Mothra is definitely a woman. A woman. Not a girl, not a female. Mothra is a woman. And what a woman! She's a Mothra with giant moth titties. What was it? Yeah, so yeah, Heisei...
Yeah, it started around 84 with Return of Godzilla. It wasn't a great period. I mean, Honda started getting pissed off the further these went.
No, a lot of people quote Heisei as the best era, though. This is a lot of Godzilla fans. I think this was where Godzilla, a lot of people grew up with Heisei, because obviously it's the 70s. So a lot of people alive today, this is their favorite Godzilla period. And again, I can't speak much on it, so we are going to kind of move quickly past it, unfortunately. We might come back and revisit it one day. Okay.
No, I was just wondering if the reason they decided to bring it back was... No, because Godzilla was originally brought out as a direct retaliation to the bombings that happened. So I wondered, just in the 1970s, when they decided to take it all the way back, was it a trigger?
Hannah's taking a history course.
Was it the fact that there was...
On the Great Courses Plus.
Well, Godzilla apparently started as a bit of a history lesson, so, you know, it's not a massive jump to think, well, did they decide to take it back to its roots to give out a similar message because something of similar ilk was happening in that time frame?
So it wasn't a great movie, but yes, like in one of them, they threw in tension between Russia and America. Godzilla destroys a sub, the Russians blame America, and there's this whole nuclear tension thing, or will they, won't they, like Ross and Rachel. I mean, they don't in the end.
I love how you've just put like the Cold War and Ross and Rachel within the same.
I mean, around about that period.
Will they, won't they?
I got off the plane, Stalin.
So around about that same period, Hannah, they had another writing competition because they ran out of ideas, and the dentist ended up winning it.
Oh my god, was it George Hardy?
It's sad, but it wasn't. I mean, he moved slightly away from the nuclear stuff exactly, and it became the biological plant that had Godzilla's DNA started taking over the city. Lots of symbology to her dead daughter, and it kind of had no popularity in America. Couldn't really get a foothold until DVDs got released. So that's when it starts becoming relevant again.
So I think people look very fondly at both of these eras have a lot of problems, but they're still very fondly remembered, and I mean it's still talked about today. Again, one of the longest running movie franchises.
I mean, after it had a 42-year reign before it was announced that Godzilla was going to die. It was the 22nd movie, Godzilla vs. the Destroyer, and it made the news, and there was a statue erected where people literally went to mourn. And I bet they feel fucking stupid now.
That statue's still in Tokyo as well. That's still one of the...
As is Godzilla. Yeah. He's still alive.
I know.
He got you.
But yeah, this kind of brings us quite nicely into the modern age Godzilla.
Yeah, man. Because it was 4 years after that he then got resurrected by Saperstein. Well, Saperstein got permissions from Toho to do another American picture. Columbia rejected it, and they dodged the bullet. TriStar were not as smart. They caught that bullet right in the chest.
Yeah, we're going to skip past the Emmerich shit, if that's okay with you, Ryan, because I do not need to talk about it.
Oh my god, absolutely not. Just so you know, though, Hannah, they wanted to make a trilogy of those. That was the original. We
discussed this on the episode, if you remember the episode, which was only a week ago.
It's already a trilogy.
Yeah.
It doesn't need a trilogy. It is a trilogy.
That's what they went with. They knew they weren't getting a second movie, so we'll put all three into this one.
So obviously there's quite a few... There's quite a few films in the Japanese canon from this time. Obviously, you've got Shin Godzilla, which was kind of a reboot of the original with a brand new design and a brand new environmental message. You have Giant Monsters All-Out Attack, which again was a very kind of just a big monster free-for-all, all-stars kind of thing. And you have Godzilla Final Wars, which was the one that pitted Zilla versus Godzilla. So it was the one that kind of did that big fuck you to the American franchise, the Emmerich franchise.
Yeah, and we also have the one that never was, the Jan de Bont one of the original versions. It was going to be him versus the Shape Changer, the Griffin.
Ooh.
And that's when he had the idea for it. We were going to get another Monster v Monster movie, and that's when he asked for the money, and he said, fuck off and give the movie over to Emmerich.
And fucked that up massively. So the next notable installment in the West came, was a good 10 years post this, with 2014 and Gareth Edwards, who I think was the best choice for this franchise. He kind of was almost like a Godzilla director in training. He got his big start with this super cool indie flick that I remember seeing in the cinema with my dad called Monsters, which is this giant kaiju film. It's set in like this post-apocalyptic war zone of a world that we live in, and it's basically about two survivors trying to make their way from, I think it's across the Mexican... I haven't seen this film in years. I think they're trying to make their way across the Mexican border. But this entire time...
Until you said that, I was picturing Monsters vs. Aliens.
Not that film. That's a DreamWorks animated fucking shit show of a film. It's this super, super slow, super foreboding, super tense giant monster movie that you don't see the monsters clearly. I don't think you see the monsters clearly at all. And it's this whole... it's very Godzilla 1954. It's very foreboding. It's very tense. It's very much allegorical of the destruction of kind of the way human beings treat the planet and the way beings kind of treat warfare and whatnot. And
is this when it becomes a lot more anti-war rather than anti-nuclear?
Yeah, well, I think that the reason they chose Edwards specifically was because his film had a very strong anti-war message etched into the fabric of it. So they thought, right, well, this guy's done this basically. He's already made a Godzilla film just without Godzilla in it. So
let's give him Godzilla.
You can't really. And then obviously Edwards is still making he made Rogue One. He's made some fantastic. He's made my favorite Star Wars film. He's done some fantastic work going forward. He's actually a phenomenal director, and I think Godzilla 2014 is actually a pretty phenomenal movie that captures the spirit of that original film, where I think he takes it back to being a horror movie. And I know a lot of people complain. You've seen Godzilla 2014, haven't you, Hannah?
Hey, you should join the conversation.
Hannah has entered the chat.
Yes.
It's very dark.
So the thing is, I barely remember this. I remember seeing it with you when it first came out.
I think.
It wasn't so much a hatred. I'm not into the big monster movies. So when we went to watch it in the cinema, I was like, you've made me leave my comfort place to come somewhere I can't leave and distract myself with other things.
Back when Ryan was an invalid.
And it was fine. Again, it was a big monster fighting another big monster with too much human stuff going on the side.
But the thing is, it's not. I
see it back on message. I see it talking about humans being bad. Godzilla not being the total monster we portray him to be. He is a product of what we have done to the world.
But what I think it does really successfully, and what I think Gareth Edwards does not get enough credit for, is turning it back into a horror film. It's taking it really, really close to its roots. And again, we don't see that much of Godzilla. A lot of people were complaining, and I think it's a ballsy move in 2014, where, again, like, I don't know what specifically was coming out that year, but you have, like, the Fast and the Furious franchise was probably still big, and Transformers was probably still big, and I don't know, the Avengers was probably coming out at that time. And you have all these massive blockbusters, and you have a guy who dares to put a giant $1 million monster movie out where a lot of it is slow, a lot of it's methodical, a lot of it's scary, and a lot of it is kind of this, you're right, this post-war allegory of look how much human beings are fucking up. I think it's a really underappreciated, intelligent monster movie akin to something like the recent Planet of the Apes franchise, which doesn't hold the audience's hand, which does kind of allow itself to be allegorical and allow itself to be heavily metaphorical, and does kind of keep to the spirit of the franchise, I think. And Toho kind of agreed. Toho went on record to say they were so impressed with Edwards that they were finally happy that America got on.
It'd been a long time.
America finally understood the assignment, I think, at this point. And a lot of people still don't like this movie and think it's so. I think it's like 70-odd% on Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of people don't get it.
No, I appreciate the franchise. I do think it was a really strong return to form. I think you're right. I think it's one of the better ones. It's not for me.
I thought it was an enjoyable film.
Yeah.
I think as somebody who, I would say no interest in Godzilla, to be honest, beforehand. Like, just no
Because you
interest
hate
in
me.
it. It just didn't sort of tick any boxes for us. And then when I sort of sat down and watched, well, it was Godzilla vs. King Kong that I watched first, because that came out recently, didn't it? And then I borrowed those couple of films from you. And Godzilla was what we watched first. And it had both me and Jack. Like, we were both dead into it for 2.5 hours, which is quite hard for Jack, I'll be honest. Like, so it's got to have done semi-well, like, just to keep him awake for the full thing. The annoying thing I found with it was, again, there was a lot of just little plots in it that just
Unnecessary.
held no relevance. Like the little boy on the train track. I really hope I'm going with the right film here. And I've not got the right Godzilla.
You have.
But the parents that let the little kid just run onto like the train, and then you've got that whole like. And don't get me wrong, there's a couple of cool scenes. Like you get to see like sort of the aerial view of Godzilla coming into like the city and such when they're on like the train and things. But it's 10-15 minutes that could have been taken away, and I think that's probably the thing that puts a lot of people off those sorts of films, is it's 2.5 hours. That's a long film to watch for something that you're not 100% interested in yet. Do you know what I mean? To get into a film, 2.5 hours is a very long time.
I think there's something to be said about a film that takes its time with the monster and builds it.
But it didn't build the monster with that.
I feel like it did.
It was trying to build a character development, which I didn't think it needed, because you knew he loved his kids. I don't need to know he's a good guy.
Here's why you're entirely wrong. I love you, but here's why you're entirely wrong. And here's why I think, again, it's a very faithful adaptation, because I think without that, without those human interest moments and those moments of complete separation, you're right, you could have a film that's 90 minutes and it's just monsters fighting. That's also great. There's nothing wrong with that. That's kind of, and I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, that's kind of what Adam Wingard's Godzilla vs. Kong is. And that's also a really good Godzilla movie. But also, really good Godzilla movies are slow and they are family and character driven, and they are a little bit plodding.
You can be slow. You can do that, and you can be family orientated. But there was a couple of people in there that were very interesting, like really interesting. Like I wish they'd spent more time on what was the main scientist guy, because he was brilliant. Like why couldn't they give him more screen time than putting this guy on a train saving an unimportant kid's life? Like it was still a really good film, and I don't want to. You
heard it here, guys. Hannah hates kids.
I don't want to badger it, because I genuinely do think that if you want to get into sort of the Godzilla verse, those couple of films, like either Godzilla versus King Kong or Godzilla, or even Godzilla King of Monsters, literally the only three I've watched.
We're going to get to King of Monsters, because we are not going to skip over King of Monsters, because I have a lot to say about King of Monsters.
That I think was my favourite, actually.
Well, this is it. I didn't want to blow my wad too early, but it's also my favourite. Just quickly on last point on Godzilla, Gareth Edwards. Ken Watanabe is that actor, and he's fucking wonderful, like absolutely fucking wonderful. He's been in a bunch of films. He's in Last Samurai. He's in Memoirs of a Geisha. He's in Inception. He's a big Nolan stan, I think. No, but last point on Godzilla 2014. I think it's beautiful to see. It's nice to see America take Japan seriously, if that makes sense. Like, it's nice to see America respecting someone else's culture for once. For once, it doesn't happen that often. And again, I'm not.
He says disrespecting someone else's culture.
No, this is the thing. I absolutely love America. I'm a big America fan.
This one brought in a couple of the sort of they sort of described a lot of the background of like their like the Japanese history as to how like Godzilla and stuff came about in this one, didn't he? So
he brings a lot of the legacy back. He brings a lot of the mysticism back and the spirituality as well. Like, well, let's get straight into King of Monsters, because King of Monsters, the sequel, I think I'm using that as a segue because it exemplifies that element. And I think the reason King of Monsters is my personal favorite, as is yours, Hannah, is because it's such a love letter to the shoujo era, and it's such a love letter to those early films, and it's so entrenched in the mythology, and it's so... Michael Doty, the director, he started off with Trick or Treat and Krampus, which are two of my favorite horror films. Fantastic horror films. If you haven't seen... You've seen Krampus, Hannah, haven't you? I'm sure we showed you that.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a fantastic movie. He's always had that affection for those practical effects and those puppeteering and those animatronics that you see used in his horror films. And I think he was always a massive fanboy for this series. Like, and it really, really shows. Ryan, do you remember King of Monsters that well? Because me and you saw it in the cinema together.
I remember Ghidorah getting his neck nuclear breathed off.
Yeah, that's a good.
It's when cool. Mothra comes back, because it's the first time I'd seen Mothra, and I fell in love with her. Like, I think I genuinely think that might be why it's my favourite. It's because of Mothra, and when she sacrifices herself at the end.
Agreed. This is my favourite.
So,
change my mind.
King of Monsters has a really strange history and a really strange relationship with critics, because it's actually not very well received. It got about 40-odd% on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience scores are like a good 80-odd%. Like, this is the best audience review.
It is
Godzilla
entertaining as fuck, though. Like,
I think it's a perfect Toho style Godzilla film. I don't think you can ask for more. And obviously, it has that long runtime, which is a bit problematic, and it has those stupid human characters, which again,
they are stupid. Mind, I mean, however, like, I'm gonna let off all of these monsters and expect good things to happen. Like, a little bit of sense.
Oh man, don't let me tell you about the battle royale that happens. It's like Godzilla versus 7 other kaijus in one of the movies.
But it's so fucking epic. There is not a moment like I was hard the entire time. It was so. It is a little like as a young boy. I dreamed of being a baseball. I've always loved monsters, and seeing these gorgeously rendered CGI, and I obviously have not been a massive fan of CGI films. I'm usually a proponent of practical effects over CGI, but the CGI in these films are fucking gorgeous. And watching a CGI Rodan, a CGI Mothra, a CGI Ghidorah, and a CGI Gojira fighting and just absolutely tearing up so many fucking things, it's so heartwarming to see, and it's so beautiful to see. And again,
He's called Godzilla in those ones, by the by.
Sorry, I do apologise. But it brings a lot of that mythology back, and it brings a lot of that spirituality back, to the point where there's a character, again, I don't know how well you both remember this film, but there's a scientist lady who helps Mothra, like she's always there kind of guiding Mothra. I don't know if you remember.
Nope.
Yes, yeah. I think I've got I think that's what I was mentioning on the previous one, but I think I've got it mixed up with this one.
Right. There's the actress from Hero and Crouching Tiger. I don't remember her name, and I'm going to kick myself because I fucking love her, and I've loved her for a while. If you're listening, she plays one part of a set of twins.
Doesn't love you enough to remember his name?
Apparently not.
Your name.
She plays a set of twins, Ryan, and I'm trying to see if you get the reference. She plays one part of a set of twins, and she's the one protecting Mothra. So again, and it's never really dwelled upon. It's never really
from the like third film or something. But
it's a direct reference to the Guardians. It's a direct reference to the Fairy Guardians from the original Mothra series, and it's not dwelled upon. It's not really like invested too much time into the narrative, but it's there for fans, and it's there for people who obviously love the series.
It's a little Easter egg
reference. It's a little Easter egg. I think King of the Monsters is the best of the legendary films. I think it's certainly the most faithful. It's down to the point of, referencing those earlier films, but also being this fucking phenomenal, big, blockbuster, spectacular.
It's gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. It's absolutely fucking stunning.
I don't say that about many of the Godzilla, because the problem I have with a couple of the ones that I've seen 3, but the one that my issues with 2 of them, right, is just how dark they can be at times. And I get that it's trying to set a scene. I do, but I also don't want to watch a 2.5 hour film where 2 hours of it is a black screen. Like, that's just not my jam. But with King of Monsters, They play a lot, I noticed, with like the shadows and the smoke and the things like that. It's a different sort of, it still brings that fear and that dread and that, oh my God, there's these, there's these awful things that are happening across the planet, but it does it in such a spectacular, awe-inspiring, this is awful, but holy shit, kind of, I can't keep my eyes away from the screen sort of way.
It's end of the world. It's like apocalyptic style, isn't it? And again, I think I've seen all of these on the big screen, so that darkness, obviously, it's so much easier to appreciate cinematography and dark cinematography specifically on the big screen. You're right, like sometimes it doesn't translate to my TV that's like 7 years old that barely fucking has like 6 pixels left in it before it blows up. I remember, you're right, they are dark, they are a little bit almost like overly atmospheric. But Ryan, do you have any input on Godzilla King of Monsters?
I barely remember it. I'm never going to be a huge franchise lover of Godzilla. I appreciate it for what it is. I appreciate its original message. And I appreciate how long the franchise has spanned for and how many fans it has. I'd give up and give it a clap. Standing ovation. Not for me. I don't remember a lot. I'm not going to.
The part of this one that did really frustrate us was like how stupid the woman was with her child. I'm just going to go blow up this whole thing so I can release a 3-headed dragon, and I'm going to bring my 12-year-old daughter with me, even though I'm doing it because I've already lost a son. Like, what?
You leave Vera Farmiga alone. She's a fucking
they were all, to be fair, that's the plus of it. It's all phenomenally acted. It is. It's brilliant.
Oh yeah, Charles Dance is in this film as well. Like Charles Dance, who again, a British national treasure. We love a bit of Charles Dance. We do. I mean, I've got nothing but positive things about this current MonsterVerse. I actually don't have that many things to say about the Kong movie because that was probably my least favorite. It's the one that kind of came and went for me. But we're kind of up to speed with our latest incarnation, which what I think Wingard's film, Godzilla vs. Kong 2021, does that. It fixes a lot of the problems that I think you guys have both mentioned in that it brightens it the fuck up to start. Like, it really... Wingard has this signature style where a lot of his films are very neon, very kind of flashy, a lot of kind of heavy usage of lighting to kind of build the scene almost, and a shit ton of this film is broad fucking daylight, and I actually adore that. Like, this is probably the first chance we get to see the monsters in their full glory and how beautiful the CGI really is. Because this is the inverse. So if King of the Monsters is this long, beautiful translation of the early Toho, of the early shoujo, where it's very methodical, where it's very thoughtful, Godzilla vs. Kong is the complete inverse, where it's the stupid fucking, this is just a monkey and a lizard fighting for an hour and a half, and you're going to love every second of it.
Well, it's a monkey versus a lizard versus a
metal lizard.
Yeah.
I think it's like the third installment of Mechagodzilla.
And again, I don't really have any complaints about this film. I think for what it is, it's a fucking ride. Like, it's just...
Yes!
It's just
Do you know what? It was very, very enjoyable. It was actually the first film me and Jack went to see outside of lockdown when all the cinemas sort of like opened back up again. And it was a brilliant way to kick it off, if you ask me, because it was just absurd and ridiculous and hilarious. And it was just... You don't take that sort of thing too seriously.
No.
I didn't ever sit back and think, holy shit, look at what's on my screen. But I did sit back and think, this is hilarious. I could watch this all day.
It's a roller coaster. It's just a 90-minute roller coaster.
And Kong was cute.
Kong was great. And again, like, they bring a lot of the humanity. Like, Kong is always meant to be the humanity in it. And I think they do Kong more of a justice. He's the protagonist. He's the one we're meant to be rooting for, even though we know he's never going to win. He's definitely framed as the protagonist. Where I think, if anything, Godzilla gets dealt a little bit of a dirtier hand, where he's a bit absent through a lot of it, which I'm fine with. Like, this is the one that did King Kong really good, which is fine.
They sort of did that weird flip, though, didn't they? Because they followed it off from... Was that followed off from King of Monsters? It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was...
Technically.
Yeah.
So Godzilla has just technically saved the entire world, and it is the entire world at this point, because there was how many of the other monsters like roaming about, and then they instantly go to this one, and it's like the whole world flips again, and it just goes, no, Godzilla's a terrible, terrible thing because it's after the other apex creature. And I don't know how, because Millie Bobby Brown has not aged in between those two films. So how they
It
have
really
managed
hasn't.
to recoup their entire civilization across the planet and then turn him back into a bad guy within the space of what can only be about 18 months, I don't know. But I suppose you can't really hang up on those sort of plot lines when you're watching something like the Godzilla.
You almost don't really care, do you? And you're right, Hannah. I think what you hit on, this idea of it was pretty much the first film that got people back into the cinema, and it's after this long period of cinemas being closed for a year. What a film to start! Like, what a film to get everyone back in. You're right, mindless 90-minute action film. Ryan, I can see what you're doing. I see you fucking making faces at Hannah, and I need you to stop. Contribute. You've been so good at contributing for about. Are you getting like? Is it your ADHD medication wearing out? Like, what's going on?
It's the radiation from Godzilla.
Oh, okay.
It's affecting me.
Well, that's kind of where we need to wrap up on the Monsterverse. I would say, as a whole, I like all four of these films quite a lot. I like Kong Skull Island quite a bit less than the other three, but I do enjoy these films.
I've not even seen that.
It's good. It's a war film. It's kind of very much a Vietnam callback. It's a Heart of Darkness kind of situation. What's it called? Oh my god! Apocalypse Now. It's basically Apocalypse Now with a big monkey. Next.
I want to like them more than I do like them.
I want to like you more than I do like you.
I want to be able to appreciate them on the level they deserve, but there's a big block for me. I'm never going to get past it. I'm really sorry about it.
That's fine. Not everyone's perfect.
I think there's a couple of the newer ones I really, really enjoyed. I don't think I'd ever invest the time that you will invest in Godzilla. I don't think I will ever go through and watch those 50 films. It's just not something. But I would every now and then, maybe dip in and watch one or two. It's not something that I would ever sort of brush away because it's very entertaining and it has with it, you're right, a plethora of history that if you really wanted to, you could really get into. And I would say if you just want to say watch a few and see whether you like them, pick a couple of the new ones and maybe the first one that was ever made or something along those lines, and then branch out from there. But it's worth a watch. It's worth a go.
I think regardless, you're absolutely right, because not everyone's going to be a fanboy like me. Not everyone's going to be militant like me. But it isn't. I think it is what infuriates me is the fact that I think a lot of people just dismiss them as stupid monster movies, whereas there's such a rich tapestry of lore behind them, and there's such a important a filmic step. I think as far as film history, Godzilla is integral to film history, and I think that's the takeaway from experiencing this last few weeks. This is what I've kind of taken away from it. Before we do end the episode, guys, thank you for listening to our Godzilla history. But before we do, we've got a couple of listener questions from a couple of very loyal fans that we're going to rattle off quite quickly because we're noticing the time. The first question from our friend George over at Tipsy Flicks. Now, I'm going to read this verbatim as he sent it to me.
Are you going to do it in his voice?
I was either going to do it in George's voice, but that's like super. Hannah could probably do it in George's voice. He's from Manchester. That's kind of close to where you lived.
Nope.
Isn't it? I don't know. I'm going to do it in the voice of I'm going to do it in the voice of a 1950s Bostoner who's working on a big scoop. Okay.
Hang on, no. For context, this guy has known me for 10 years, and I've lived in Liverpool, South Yorkshire, and Newcastle.
Closer.
It's more closer. That he's geographically challenged than he is ignorant as a friend.
I'm a bit of both, let's be honest. So,
this is true.
George's question in the voice of a 1950s Bostoner who's working on a big scoop. That's a lot of fish, say. But tell me, say, if you will, how much fish? How much fish is too much fish? It's directed entirely at you, Hannah. How much fish is too much fish?
I mean, personally, any amount of fish, I ate fish. So.
That's a good point.
When you don't shower for 2 days.
Oh, what specifically, Hannah?
I mean, I didn't want to go. You said it.
Oh,
you said it. I may have thought that it might be true, but I didn't say it.
Off colour. That's not fun. Tipsy's real question is, what's everyone's favourite kaiju? And who would win in a fight between our favourite kaijus? I'm going to let Hannah take this first.
Who classes?
You like Mothra a lot.
Oh, I was about to say Mothra, but
I'll answer the question for you. So my favorite kaiju is Mothra because Mothra's so pretty and I like pretty things.
Wow, that was 7 shades of sexist.
No, go on, Hannah. Go on.
She's just one of the boys.
You know.
No, I'm sorry. I was really rude.
I'm rage quitting, and it's not just because I don't know another one other than Mothra.
Is it Mothra, though? Let's be honest. It's Mothra, isn't it?
I mean, it's always going to be Mothra. She's adorable and I love her.
She's one of my favourites, in all honesty.
I mean, I'm going to go off script.
Ryan's going off script.
I'm going to go with anime from Final Fantasy X. Yuna Summon.
Ooh, okay. Hey, you're going to have to explain this to me because I'm not a Final Fantasy person, but go for it.
He's a big, scary fish in a shell that has a big
scary
hook.
fish.
Whoa, what the fuck happened there?
Gremlins in the system.
Gremlins in the system. If you are a little bit confused as to why we just cut off mid-sentence, we had a little issue.
I think I've closed my sentence off nicely.
Oh, did you? Did you finish it with a nice little full stop?
I mean, I could have kept on talking because Final Fantasy is great.
We were mid-question, though. There was that. We had this issue where halfway through recording our listener questions, Zencaster decided to say, fuck you, that's enough.
We lost 6 minutes of data.
I'm done with your bullshit. I'm done hearing your voices. I think we are that dedicated to bringing you solid content that we're going to truck on anyway and answer those questions and make sure we plug everything at the end. So we were midway through answering Tipsy's question on Best Kaiju, and I think you were talking about your Final Fantasy Kaiju. Did you get everything out for that one?
Oh yeah, me and Hannah are done. Just your opinion. If that's important.
So Zencaster decided that I wasn't important and cut me off. Yeah, cool. Because I think my Kaiju is the best Kaiju. I was going to go for the Kaiju from Bong Joon-ho's film, The Host, made in 2006, which is a very hyper-political, hyper-satirical kind of Kaiju film. And one of the first ones I saw. However, the Kaiju itself, you've seen The Host, right?
My brain's just going to the faculty.
Oh, I love The Faculty. No, The Host is the big fish movie, the one that's made out of little fish, and it's this big pollution monster. But again, the whole thing is just this big political satire for how horrible America is, which is just hilarious. Like, it's this big fuck you to
he did Parasite as well,
He did Parasite, which again, highly satirical, highly political, highly important kind of thematic thriller. He also did. You'll recognize his work from Okja as well, which was a really cool film.
Yeah, that made one of my friends vegetarian.
Yeah, it pretty much made me vegetarian as well. He likes to insert a lot of political satire into his movies, and it's similar to something like Godzilla. It sticks to that highly political theme of, this is a giant monster movie, but there are important messages here. There's important content here that people should be paying attention to and people should be listening to. When it comes to which one of our kaijus would win, it absolutely fucking wouldn't be mine because he's just as big fish.
Oh my god, absolutely be mine. He has magic, like in fire, thunder, air, gravity. He also shoots laser beams from his eye. He has a bottom half that he summons people into this hell dimension that just attacks them with vicious claws.
Hannah, how would yours do?
Chirp, chirp. You may have noticed Hannah is missing now.
Okay. Yeah, Hannah's not back. She did not make it through the Delta variant, but we are still here to answer the last 2 questions from our devoted, beautiful listeners.
Our devotees.
Well, Hannah won't be there, but
Hannah doesn't care enough.
We don't really need her opinion, let's be entirely honest.
I don't even think we invited it, to be honest.
We didn't even bother asking. Our second question comes from our beautiful fan, beautiful guy on Instagram. Love this guy to bits, Ed Cooks. He's actually just started his own Instagram page, which I do want to give a quick shout out to because he's doing his own like book review Instagram page, which is quickly becoming my favorite new Instagram page. It's called Ed the Read, so EDTHEREAD. Find him on Instagram and make sure you guys give him a follow. He's posting fantastic book reviews every other day. It's definitely updated my summer reading list, so thank you very much for that, Ed, and thank you for being a fan since the start. You're a class act. He asked us what our favourite Roland Emmerich film is.
Oh, I thought I was going to ask my favourite book.
That's different.
Too hard a choice.
Well, Ed, you asked us this question and then immediately DM'd me telling me that the correct answer was Independence Day. So I don't even know what you expect from us at this point because you know the right answer. Everybody listening to this knows the correct.
That's the only film I can think of that's worth anything.
It's the only, but this is it. It's such a weird anomaly where it's a masterpiece in a catalogue of trash. Like I can't confidently say I even completely tolerate any other film in his catalogue. maybe Universal Soldiers. Universal Soldiers is kind of fun, but it's still awful. Independence Day is a film made by a different guy. There's no question about that. That is a different person who made that film with Emmerich's name slapped on it. There's the level of quality does not transfer from that to any of his other films. So you know the answer.
Biking.
So stop asking stupid questions, Ed. But I do love you. You're awesome. Thank you very much, Ed. Our last question comes from another fantastic guy, Brad Kelsey, who's been listening since the start. Thank you so much for sending your question in. He asked us why we think it is so difficult for American producers to make Godzilla films and why Japan seems to be the only country that can get them right. Well, I mean, we have kind of covered this.
So I want to go with firstly the censorship. definitely just fuck things over there.
In the early days.
They cut out a lot of the interesting stuff, a lot of the heart, left Godzilla, and the whole point of what the movie was gone. And then they didn't get the source material. A lot of them didn't respect it. By a certain point, it does start to get stale.
Oh, yeah.
So they end up trying to do different things, and it just flops, and then like, oh, let's make it for kids, and it gets weird.
Yeah. I think they don't take the source material very seriously either. Like, they don't realize there is this heavy political satire that is entrenched in the lore of the universe. And they're like, oh, it's a giant dumb monster film. Fuck it, let's put a giant dumb monster in New York. Have airplanes chase him. I don't care. Whereas it's deep-rooted, heartfelt political satire that is just completely absent from anything that America even tries to cover, really.
I think we're starting to learn now how to do a good reboot.
Yeah.
Like, not all of them are successful, Terminator, but in general, we're getting better at it. We're learning what the audience likes, why the originals worked for us so well, and how to bring them into the 21st
Why hasn't
century.
Terminator ever understood the assignment? But I also think that's the problem, isn't it? Like, you can go one way. I think, Terminator is quite a good example of how to do it incorrectly, because a lot of the efforts there are just rehashes. A lot of the efforts there are just, this is the same story, this is the same time travel story with the glossy coat of paint. Whereas I do think a lot of the successful remakes and a lot of the successful reboots take the spirit, they have the consciousness and the ideals and what's important to the film, and they do something creative with it. And I actually think that's what Edwards did. And I think kind of Edwards onwards, he has the spirit of Godzilla, but it still has that American sheen to it. Whereas I think if you combine that, you tend to get a more successful product rather than, we're just going to make this entirely American. Fuck anything Japan even try to do. Fuck all that political satire. We don't care. You've got to have that kind of symbiosis between both of the cultures. Thank you so much, Brad Kelsey. You are a legend, and do keep sending us in your questions. I think that's all for us today, unless we have any pressing matters, any news we need to bring up. We do have a competition. I immediately answered my own question. We do have a competition running at the minute. I think we've got a couple days left. By the time you hear this, we've got about 3 or 4 days left, so get on it. You have the chance to win a Blu-ray edition of Godzilla vs. Kong and a Funko Pop vinyl of the Scaly Boy himself. So pop on our Instagram and make sure you find the post that says giveaway on it and follow the instructions as to how to win. Other than that, we've had a fantastic time giving you a history lesson on everything you need to know about Godzilla. Do check in next week when we will be covering a cult classic of the genre, Howard the Duck. We'll actually be having a special guest on that episode as well, but I'm keeping that under wraps until that person arrives, just in case he doesn't.
Always cover your bases.
Always good to cover my bases. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time.